Yes, the infamous frijoles de la olla. The beans that everybody loves to eat but hate to make. Yes, they are very time consuming. And many years ago, I learned this recipe from my grandmother, hence the term Nana's frijoles de la olla. And they are the best frijoles de la olla that I've ever tasted. So it's worth the time to invest this, even if you only do it once in a while. But today I'm going to show you how to do it, and it doesn't take very many ingredients, just a lot of love and a lot of time. So we're going to start with 1 pound bag of pinto beans, dried of course, 1 medium-sized brown onion. You'll need 3 strips of thick cut bacon of your choice, and you'll need 3 fresh Serrano chilies, medium to large size Serranos, and 4 large cloves of garlic. If you have small cloves, you can use 5, and a 5-quart pot. You also need about 6 hours of soaking time and 2 hours of cook time for these beans. All right, so I'm going to show you here in just a minute how to get started. The first thing we'll do is sift through the beans for foreign matter. Lay them out on a flat surface, spread them out nice and wide so you can see in between the beans and look for any odd looking beans or beans that don't belong in there. There's a bean that doesn't look like it belongs, and you'll find twigs and little pieces of weeds and all kinds of weird stuff in these things. Remember, they come from the dirt. That's where they're grown. And this is what you're really looking for: rocks. You definitely don't want to bite into a rock when you're eating your beans. So you'll also find these types of beans that look like they're shriveled up and dying and just drying out, like beyond tasty. So take those out. Once you get your beans sorted, then you're gonna take and put them into a colander, and then we'll take them over to the sink. We'll rinse them off with some cold water to get any remaining dust and dirt out of there. And then we'll put them back in our pot, where we'll fill to the top, almost to the top, about 7 or 8 inches of water above the bean line. This is for the soaking process. 6 hours of soaking, then you'll see your beans have actually expanded in size. And then we're going to remove the water. Legend has it that this water is where the bezos lie. Supposedly soaking the beans extracts all of the flatulence causing ingredients and gases from the bean. And of course, if you like that kind of thing, you can use the same water. But I recommend discarding the water, rinsing the beans again, and then filling the pot again about 1.5 inches above the bean line this time. Just 1.5 inches. And throughout the cooking process, you want to keep the water about 0.5 inch to 1 inch above the bean line. You can always add a little water if you see it dissipating, but keep that water at that level. Now onto our onion. We're going to take half of the onion and we're going to quarter that half and set that aside. That's going to go into our beans while they're simmering. The other half of the onion you're going to dice finely, not finely, but big chunks like you see here, and set that aside. And then we're going to smash our garlic cloves. Just smash them down really flat, break them up a little bit, remove the husks, and then also there's a little bit of a root ball at the end there, a dried woody type thing. You want to always remove that. So we're going to leave it in bigger chunks like this because it's mainly going to dissolve throughout the cooking process. And when you're smashing your garlic, be careful because they can get away with you, as you'll see here. Look to the left, slow motion. Boom, there it goes, right under my arm. Yeah, banked off the refrigerator onto the floor, and I had to rinse it and then squash it again. So anyways, we're going to take those cloves of garlic and we're going to add those to our beans along with our chunks of onion. We're going to push them down a little bit in there and then turn our flame on high. Put the lid on and bring these to a boil. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to get them to a rolling boil. Once you get them to a rolling boil, you'll reduce the heat to a simmer, almost as low as you can go. As you can see there, we're going to put the lid on and leave a little bit of a crack and set your timer for 90 minutes. During that time, you can cut and seed your Serrano chilies. I use this little baby spoon, my wife calls it. I use it for the sugar in my coffee, but it makes a great tool to scrape out the seeds in these smaller chilies. The reason we scrape out the seeds is because they can irritate your digestive tract, or some people can handle them, but I just take them out because they're really unnecessary. The flavor you want is really coming from the chilies. So we're going to dice these chilies nice and small. We'll dice all 4 of them and put these aside with the chopped onion. Later we're going to saute the onion and the chilies and the bacon all together. That's going to be added to our beans in the last half hour of cooking. You can omit the bacon if you want to make these beans vegetarian. That's all you have to do, is take the bacon out. But why would you want to do that? Anyways, here's our bacon, our applewood smoked thick sliced bacon. I'm going to cut it lengthwise in half, and then I'm going to cut it into about 1/2-inch cubes. And once I have it all chopped in 1/2-inch cubes, you're going to separate it so they're individual pieces. You don't want to throw it in the pan in big chunks because then it's going to cook unevenly. You want to try to cook it as even as possible. So that way all the bacon will touch the pan. So we'll get it in here into a medium-high heat and just start sauteing your bacon. It's going to render down. It's going to render all kinds of good fat. It's going to be soaking up in the bacon and just making it nice and flavorful. Also, that fat's going to end up going into the beans and acting as a thickening agent and also flavor. So here you see my bacon is, browning nicely. I like to leave it about halfway cooked. I like to brown the meat part and leave the fat part just a little bit undercooked, where it's just starting to brown. You can cook it as much or as little as you like. And then I add my chopped onion, saute this for a while, make sure you stir it in and get it all nice and coated with the bacon grease. And you're going to cook the onion for about 10 minutes, stirring it occasionally just to make sure nothing burns. And then you're going to add your chopped green chilies. Here your Serranos go into the mix, get it sauteed and nice and coated again with the bacon grease, and then you're going to let that cook for about 5 minutes. At that point, this beautiful, I guess you can call this a Mexican mirepoix. The French have their onion, celery, and bell pepper, and we have our bacon, onion, and chili peppers. So once you're done with that, you're going to go ahead and now I'm showing you, this is what the beans look like at 60 minutes of simmering. You can see the juice is still a little thin, but the beans are softening and everything is cooking really nicely. This is a half an hour later at the 90-minute mark. So at 90 minutes, you're going to remove the lid and place your beautiful mix of bacon and chilies and onions into your pot of beans. And you'll stir it around gently because the beans are softening now. You don't want to mash any of them up. Just stir it in nicely, and then you'll put the lid back on and cook. This time with the lid all the way on. No crack in the lid for the last 30 minutes or so until you achieve a desired thickness of your broth. But if you keep track of the water, you want to, during the cooking process of these beans, every half hour or so, you want to look at the water level to make sure that it's still just staying just about a half an inch above the bean line, or maybe an inch max. That's how you get this thick juice. All right. So after your half hour of cooking with the mixture, it's time to season. So I used 3 teaspoons of salt. You can start with 2 and then let it set for 5 to 10 minutes while the salt dissolves, stir it around, and taste. If it's not salty enough, then you can add that third teaspoon, and that was perfect for me. So you can see here the juice is nice and thick. It's very rich. It's almost like a gravy. The beans are nice and tender, plump, and everything's incorporated. All the flavors have melded, and it's time to plate it up. And I just simply put it in a bowl and grab a corn or flour tortilla and a spoon. That's really all I need. You can garnish this with anything: cheese, cilantro, more onion, hot sauce or salsa. But nevertheless, it's definitely worth time invested. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Vinyl Chef Steve and me sharing a very dear family recipe from my grandmother, Nana's Frijoles de la Olla. Thanks for joining me again, and we'll see you next time.